Welcome to the IR Digital Podcast. IR Global is the largest international professional services network. I'm the host of the IR Digital Podcast, Jennifer Riggins. Today we're sitting down, virtually of course, socially distantly of course, with Kimberly Hatfield and Dave Thompson, CPAs and partners at the accountancy firm Hutchinson and Bloodgood LLP. Today we're talking about the digital workplace, what I guess at this point could just be called the workplace for now for most of us. The way we work has been obviously transformed in the last decade, and about a year ago, for many of us, we saw the workplace rapidly change from a physical space to a remote one. But crises like the COVID-19 pandemic are, thank goodness, anomalies, knock on wood. And because of that, we saw across the most restricted, slow to change industries performing this rapid change, like banks going really remote and embracing the cloud in a week because they had to, or finding VPNs to enable all these people to access remotely online safely. So oftentimes in times of crisis, we're able to do the impossible and make it possible. And everything aligns together and we move forward together. But now we're about a year into this. Surely the momentum of last spring and the trust and psychological safety of last spring and summer has slowed. Today, we're going to talk about how business can and should prepare for the future of work and continue moving forward, take that momentum and go further. Kimberly, Dave, and I will discuss as the workplace evolves into a new, more agile environment. What will this mean for you and your colleagues? What about your clients? In this conversation, we'll touch base on data protection, tools, governance, and how to get your clients on board. But first, let's get a little background for y'all. If you can introduce yourselves, and then your own change of work scenery over the last year, including where you're calling from right now. Kimberly, do you want to start?
Sure. I'm Kimberly Hatfield. I'm a partner at Hutchinson and Bloodgood. I've been in practice, let's see, I might be dating myself here, a little over 20 years now. I'm here in San Diego, California. I was born and raised here. Um, and my practice is in international taxation. So I assist clients, businesses coming into the US with their US tax compliance, their structure of how to set up a US business, the, the best structure for tax savings. I also help their executives that are coming into the US. And on the flip side, I also help when companies are expanding across the world and taking their businesses into other countries. They're sending executives into other countries. So I help them with the best structure. We work well with advisors in other countries to make sure that they're setting up the right structures in those countries. And then, of course, the tax compliance here in the US.
It definitely makes sense why you'd be part of IR Global Network and all those
Yes.
partnerships and networks. So that's great. And Dave, tell us about your background and specialization.
Well, pretty much what Kimberly said. But IR Global is definitely a perfect fit for us because of what we do. I like to think of us as your local global tax advisors, where we're helping people do international things, expanding their businesses, like Kimberly said. It's really the part that we take care of is the domestic U.S. compliance rules, and with that comes, understanding of the treaties between countries, the different structurings, like Kimberly said, that really benefits our clients. It's not always the same for anybody. It depends upon what your purpose is, your goals, and then helping them stay away from things that could be dangerous. Something as simple as, for instance, you're probably familiar with this, having moved from the US to the UK, something as simple as a mutual fund. Owning a mutual fund in the UK, it could create huge issues from a reporting standpoint for you in the US, because the US treats those differently. Something as simple as a mortgage that's denominated in euros or pounds. So things like that. But I've been practicing for about 40 years. all here in San Diego, and working remotely over the last year, but we were pretty well set up already doing some remote work prior to this, so we'll probably get into that. But been exciting. I love the company. I love the international reach that we have through IR Global. So it's been great.
Great. Thank you both very much for joining us. So let's just start all on the same page. I guess, Dave, if you want to start this time, what is a digital workplace? What isn't it? Because maybe we all have our own assumptions about it. It's a hot word.
Yeah, well, in my view, and again, this goes back prior to COVID, it's working outside of just paper. I mean, I remember the days of the 13-column spreadsheets where we did all our accounting on those spreadsheets, pieces of paper in front of us, to working electronically. I remember the early days when I was working for a construction company where we were just starting to use computers, and it was such a great tool to use, and it helped me with what I need to do from an accounting standpoint, keep track of payroll and the job costs and all that stuff. And I'd actually pack up the computer, which was really a lot bigger back then, and cart it home so that I could work from home remotely, because remotely back then was carrying your computer with you. So digital is electronic in my eyes, and again, working through whatever means that aren't actually physical, pencil, paper, that type of stuff.
Do you have anything to add, Kimberly, to that?
I'm sure, I guess, you know, I guess the digital workplace to me is a lot more has evolved a lot more into, especially with the COVID, and we are now meeting with our clients not in person. So not only are we doing stuff electronically on the computer when it comes to like the Excel schedules and the Word documents and stuff like that, but we also now meeting via video, or as today, podcasts. You're getting your information out digitally instead of actually meeting in person. So that, to me, that's part of it as well.
Absolutely. I think how we communicate has completely changed, and a digital workplace, a very modern workplace, understands how to leverage the different forms of communication and going where your customers want to be, the way your customers, I guess, want to communicate, which video conferencing they want to use, if they prefer Slack or even WhatsApp or email.
Exactly. And even as teams within the office, we are now chatting via Teams or Skype versus getting up and walking to their office and having that talk in a live space. It's a lot more readily available, and you can reach out at any time to people instead of if they're missing from their office. Yeah.
And is that better or worse, that form of asynchronous, always on communication?
It could be both. It could drive some distraction there, but sometimes you can get some fast answers to your quick questions. But then it could also drive some distraction. But I would say on the most side, it's a plus.
Do you say yeah, go Dave. Sorry.
One of the things what I think has been really neat is that working internationally before COVID, there was very few times where I thought of actually connecting with my clients via video. And so there's so many clients that I had never met before. And since COVID, it's like, it's my go-to. So I'll instead of scheduling a phone call, I schedule a Zoom call. And sensitive to those who don't want to be on video, but that is my go-to first is, hey, let's set up a Zoom, because then I can actually see you and talk to you. And it like you said earlier, it's just much more personable that way.
It is nicer. Do you work more or less this year and the last year, do you think?
I've worked, yeah. It was a crazy year for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, international relations in any form is always going to be interesting. But yeah, I think the majority of us work more. So we need to find new ways to disconnect from the digital workplace, because it's, I guess, there's a lot of benefits of it, but one downside is the 24/7 always on of it.
Exactly.
Right.
So with this, you work in this international space, which data protection, data compliance has become this hotbed topic because we have GDPR. You're in California, so you have CCPA, which I think is changing its name soon after the recent referendum. There are a lot of different, every state I think has different data privacy laws. GDPR is for Europe and the UK still. So yeah, how does the difficulties when you're trying to you're compliant in a workplace that's very international, how do you help advise them? And then how do you deal with all this data of your clients that they're dealing? And, when you constantly have new technology, how does that all factor in together? Kimberly, do
Mhm.
you want to take that one first?
Sure. So there's significant shifts in the digital workplace across all industries, and especially within the accounting industry, and it's ever changing in a sprawling technology landscape, impose many complications regarding the data protection of all organizations. And I feel like especially um, in our industry, because we're dealing with very sensitive data with our clients. The rapid adoption of the remote work capabilities will, without appropriate due diligence, adds to the layer of the risks and the complexities. Um, and so we actually have, like you mentioned, we have some consumer privacy protections here in California, and an increasing awareness of information security by consumers. Consumers, especially our clients, are very sensitive to what data we're collecting, and how it's secured. It's a lot of times, I have clients ask me, how is this going to be secure? What softwares are you using? And is it cloud-based? Is it, um, they, I've even gone so far where I've had clients ask me which softwares we're using and how it's based. So um,
Wow.
it's become
Clients, where are those clients based? Are they based in Europe, targeting the US, or vice versa, or what usually?
both. Both.
Wow.
I had one that she's here right in San Diego, and especially because of the pandemic, she wasn't quite used to sharing a bunch of information digitally. And so she asked, okay, what softwares are you guys using? How is it secure? How do I know it's not going to get stolen? And so I had to go through that. Our IT consulting group here with our firm was very helpful in helping me gather that data for her so I could provide that information. So our IT, once again, our IT consulting group, they have some recommended best practices. And Dave, did you want to go through some of those?
Yeah, please, because
Sure.
I think it sounds like a lot of your clients are very educated now, but maybe you've performed some of that education, because I don't feel like that many people and companies they're just starting to take it seriously, as serious as it is. So please
Right.
provide those tips, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to go on a little bit about what Kimberly was saying, though, more important than the regulatory uh, entities that are trying to control what we see and what we don't see, and what we share and what we don't share. It was important. It's important. It really is important, even outside of those regulations. We were doing GDPR type stuff before GDPR. We were definitely, as a firm, we were employing GDPR before the rest of the U.S. because we were already working internationally. Um, and what has begun with the California Consumer Privacy Act, and I don't know what the name of it, what it's going to become, but what that's what it is now. That's just the starting point, because I think with the new change in the administration here in the U.S., that's not going to go away. I think you got bipartisan support for consumer protection, privacy protection. Republicans they're against the social platform immunity that was in the news in the end of December, beginning of January, with those bills that were being passed at the end of the year. That Section 230 is what they called it, which is protections against giving immunity to Google and Facebook and all that. And the Democrats are concerned about the data collection policies. How are we collecting information? How's it being stored? So again, we were doing this stuff prior to it because we do have a very good, robust IT division, and Steve Nessen, our partner that manages that group, is just super. He's put together a great team. Some of the recommended best practices that we have are things like data classification. So understanding what data you're generating, what data you're collecting, what you're retaining, where you're storing it. Are you storing it on premise or in the cloud? Is it on your workstation? And if it is on your workstation, how are you protecting it there? So that's one thing, is really in understanding what it is that you have. Doing risk assessments to evaluate your overall security posture, identifying what gaps there are and plans for remediation if something happens. You lose power or your computer gets hacked. What type of logical access controls do you have to ensure that access is granted to those individuals that are authorized to access it, not everybody, defining job roles and responsibilities surrounding that data. Endpoint logical security solutions to prevent and to detect the malicious software, because phishing is a big thing. How are we protecting against that? Things that are coming through emails, emails that aren't invited, emails that come from people we know that have things attached to it that maybe their email was hacked. Encryption. How are we protecting the information that we're sending out? Is it just going out as regular data, or is that data being encrypted first so that a user that's not supposed to, or somebody that's not supposed to get that information, doesn't have the tools to get the information itself? What type of information is being provided? For instance, we actually, when we send out an email now, we can't send an email that's got social security numbers or personal identification information. It'll actually flag it if we try to send an email with that information and it says this is against our policies. And so what we need to do then is create a document out of that and attach it in a secure, what we use share file for that. And it encrypts it and it puts that information in an encrypted format. Then we can send it. Data retention policies. How are you retaining the information? How long are you keeping it for? Making sure that you're following all the laws and the rules regarding that. And then when that information isn't needed anymore, what are you doing with it? How are you destroying it? What kind of policies do you have that are set to make sure that that information isn't kept longer than it's supposed to? And along the lines of GDPR, when a client says, "Hey, we don't want you to have that information," how are you making sure that information is being destroyed and erased from your computers? And more importantly than that, do you have supportive IT resources? Do you have, not many of us in the trusted advisor arena do this for a living, right? So we don't know what to do. So it's important to surround yourself and have good people that can, if you don't have it, to outsource that and make sure you have people that understand that digital environment enough to protect all that information that is being traded back and forth.
Absolutely, because while GDPR, CCPA, all of these are very deeply technical regulations that have deeply technical around the classification of data, the access, the mapping out, having someone on your team that is the GDPR person, basically, if you get audited, or people like the go-to person, things like that. All of these seem deeply technical, but everyone has to. If you have a website in the EU that opens up in the EU, and there are some in the US that won't open, for sure, some US sites that won't open. But if you do, you have to have GDPR compliance, and it needs to be auditable and traceable. So it's not just a tech thing anymore. It's everything. I guess tech is everything, isn't it? And data, they say data is the new oil. well, then if it's the new oil, privacy's got to be the earth. Like we're at risk of setting it on fire and losing
Mhm.
that value. So it's super important. How does this work for your job? Like, is it because you need to be compliant in your roles as CPAs, or is it also that you're advising your clients as part of, because I look at accountancy as numbers. So how does this data play into your roles?
So I would say it's both. I mean, we have a great IT consulting group here that helps us being compliant as far as our side of it and securing the clients. But we also have the consulting group that they can go out to our clients or, come to us with their issues and we can assist our clients to set up some of these securities for them as well. So we can do it in both formats.
Okay, cool. I was just thinking, like, you think accountants, you think spreadsheets. So it's so interesting how digital and how the role is changing. And it has to change really to be an advisor because AI, the spreadsheets will be AI'd out soon enough. So it's about giving that human touch and that trusted partnership. So I think that was a great term, Dave. Trusted advisors is a good
Mhm.
term for
Yeah.
the IR Global network and community. So obviously, you're not doing this by hand anymore. We just talked about the importance of the human touch. How do tools factor in? Why do you think it's important for your, I guess, automation, and how important is technology for the success? I guess it's everything for modern business. How do you help advise them?
Do
Do
you
you
want
want
me
to
to
take this?
go?
Yeah, go
Sure.
for it.
I just, and you could do some of it too, Kimberly, because I think that really the digital workplace, it incorporates all the technologies that we use and what needs to get done, whether it's human resources or online applications that we use, like for instance, tax software systems or um, um, even the the information that we use to retain appointments, calendar appointments, or email and all that stuff, virtual meeting tools. Uh, so the advantages of that, or thing that provides us, is it provides us with an ability to collaborate, to solve business problems, and operate productively, organizing and leveraging all the knowledge that we have across the organization in-house, as well as we really do thrive on collaboration here in our San Diego office, well, throughout. We really like to collaborate with our, not only our in-house team members, but like we talked about earlier, we like to collaborate with our clients too. We think a lot of times that we don't have the answers, that we have good questions. And so it's a lot of back and forth, and you need the tools to help do that. So we're trading spreadsheets and we're trading, so that our clients can see what it is that we're seeing, and we can actually talk about it or share a screen nowadays, share a screen and bring up the spreadsheets that we're talking about. Um, so Teams and Zoom, they're really do help us do that, because you can actually take over or let somebody take over your screen or gain access to their screen. I think it was last week I was helping a client with getting information to us, and she used to put that information on a thumb drive, and with work paper, she would drive it over to the office and drop it off. And because of COVID and such, we picked up some new tools. And so I logged on to, we logged on to a Zoom meeting and actually saved that file to her desktop. And we're able to transfer it right then and there to our encrypted server. So things like that, it increases productivity and efficiency. The tools that we use, it helps employees execute the business processes that we have and the functions that are used to make sure that it gets done correctly. I think if we don't use technology to help our customers, then if it's an experience where it creates more work for them, we're not into that. So this year we launched, we're using this thing, it's called Tax Caddy. And it's kind of like, we used to have these paper organizers. I don't know if you're familiar with, maybe you're using an accountant, that at the end of the year, they'd send you an organizer every year to help you organize that data for your tax returns. Well, that used to be paper. Over the last few years, we'd send a PDF copy of that to our more savvy clients. This year, we launched a totally electronic type organizer that sort of backfills the information that we had in the prior year with the things that we'd be looking for this year. And the idea being is, instead of them bundling all that stuff up, making copies, putting it in something where they have to either send it to us file by file, they can actually drag and drop that information. So like, for instance, a 1099 or W-2, you just drag and drop it into this tax caddy, and it puts it in a place where it makes sense. And then we create work papers out of that. They get OCR scanned and then uploaded into our tax software system. Really, but the whole idea of that is shouldn't be about making it easier for us. It should be making it, a good experience for our customers as well. So, and then our customers for in-house are our team members, right? So we also need to make sure that they're satisfied and that they're getting the tools that they need to do a good job. So we really do. I mean, one of the things that drew me to Hutchinson and Bloodgood back in 2005 was I subleased from them for a number of years, and I was able to see how they embraced technology, and it really fascinated me. They were always at the cutting edge of the tools to use and the software that was out there and the ways to connect. And I said, well, I want to be a part of that. So when my practice got too big and I had to make decisions about it, I go, well, this is the type of company I want to work with, and it's been a big hit. So really looking out to make sure that the team has the tools they need to do a good job.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I guess too, I wanted to expand on that with the actual team members within the organization. As time goes on, we're bringing in newer generations into our organization, and they were raised on some of this technology.
Yeah.
So we have to keep up with the technology to maintain their interest in the company. If we don't stay caught up, they're not going to be interested in staying with us. They're going to go find a firm that has this technology. But the other driving force is that with this digital workplace, there's this work-life balance that we're creating, and they're able to, like you mentioned earlier, work 24/7. So they can adjust their schedule as needed and do life things at the times that they need to do it, and then work at other times. So we've expanded from the typical 8 to 5 have to be in the office at this time. Especially working internationally now, sometimes we're working later into the night or really early in the morning to connect with these international clients. So that leaves room for somebody to take off during the day to go to a doctor's appointment or take their kid to a soccer game or something like that. So it does help with the employee satisfaction and have that work-life balance. And we always go by the phrase here, happy team, happy client. So we keep us happy, we're going to keep the clients happy.
Absolutely. And you're getting the potential out of people. You're automating a lot of the boring stuff that I'm sure nobody loved, uploading and sending you each of those W-9, 1099
Yes.
forms every year. So if you're automating the relationship, the boring stuff out of the relationship, you can then advance the relationship to be more beneficial and value added, which is always fun for everybody because nobody wants to type up a form. Nobody
Right.
wants to upload a document. So Kimberly, how does it work then when we're talking about governance frameworks in this new digital landscape? Do they change by jurisdiction? Is it something you juggle a lot? What is governance anyway for like an outsider, for what your perspective is?
Yeah, so having a governance model or strategy is essential in mitigating the risk and enabling the compliance with best practices. And that is, following some of the governing rules and stuff that do come out. I believe it is ever changing because, the risk factors and consumer security issues that they have out there, it's always evolving, and you want to stay up to date and make sure that you're minimizing any risk. So some of the frameworks that we work with is COBIT, which is control objectives for information related technology. And this guarantees integration of the information systems and the different systems out there. We also have the COSO, which is the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Treadway Commissions. It's a joint initiative of the 5 private sector organizations, is dedicated to providing thought leadership through development of frameworks. And let's see, then we also have the ITIL, which is the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. This is used by millions of professionals globally. Businesses are built on the ITIL. And these defined methods are used to implement and manage and monitor the organizations depending on the industry and the regulations. Do you have anything to add to that, Dave? Or
Well, there's fundamentals of all those organizations, and this is information that our IT consulting group were kind enough to put together these organizations. But some of them, I mean, it really surprised me that that one you were mentioning, CASO, the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations, that is made up of like the American Accounting Association, AICPA, Financial Executives International, and the Associations of Accountants. And these are all like accounting, the Institute of Internal Auditors, and it's like they're strong on this. So we have, at least from an accounting standpoint, we've got this framework that is used to help with all that data protection and having the policies and procedures and governance over that. But so all those have the same thing in common. There's fundamentals that are consistent across all those frameworks. And so there's things like information governance strategy to determine the focus of digital workplace strategy and making sure that things are in alignment with the business strategy. Policies and procedures that identify business objectives, a means to achieve them, and interpreting guiding principles, definitions, enforcement, monitoring, controls that are needed to achieve all those objectives. Then making sure that you have proper roles and responsibilities to identify who those key stakeholders are, creating appropriate and sustainable models by defining the governance processes, the metrics and the oversight, and then training and certification, making sure that employees have the training to know when they're, what to do, when to do. So for instance, we have a what's called NOBI 4, is it what that was called, Kimberly? Where we actually they send out like emails that are phishing emails to make sure that we're doing the right things, that we're not clicking on emails that we shouldn't. So
they're trying to trick you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're tricking you into compliance.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one method, but I guess it's effective.
And there's training beside that too. So we, I think it's once a year at least, we go in and actually do some training to either as a reminder or as a reinforcement of the things that we should be watching for. And we try to pass those best practices on to our clients as well.
Makes sense. And I think what you described earlier, the email reminding you, I know my Google reminds me if I forget to attach an attachment, which I really appreciate. I deeply appreciate in the Gmail. You said attach, but we see nothing. Are you sure you want to send that? Yeah, it's very valuable. So the fact that they're also applying very similar AI chatbots saying like, are you sure you want to send that person's PPI is really, or PII, personally identified information? That's a very valuable tool. And then I guess the next is that's a really good way to onboard people on tools to remind them, don't click on that link. Don't be a dum-dum.
Yeah, like I said, we can't even send it with the PII anymore. It's like the programs that we have catch it and say, nope, can't send that, not that way.
That's really good, actually, because that's a really good way to put your clients first and private, and the end consumer or whoever's private information you're coming in contact with. Super important. So, how are your clients responding to this? Like, I guess recently your organization, your firm has gone through a big technological advance, it sounds like. And that affects your clients. They're now accepting, like you said, the tax cubby, I think you said, just cutely named. And it changes their workflow that they're used to with you. And how was it like for both of you, because you've been at the firm for quite a while, to make this adaptation? And then how has it been for your clients?
Yeah, so I think our firm has always I felt like stayed up the times with technology. I know with some of our clients, some of them can be in the older generations, and so there have been some pushback on that. There can be some a little bit of reluctance with it. Also, not feeling safe with the security um, but I really felt a shift with some of those clients as the pandemic happened. So things moved really fast for them. But then we had our younger generation clients that were coming in, and they didn't have that reluctance at the beginning. So it really hasn't been too much of a shift for them through this pandemic. Um, and so now we're just basically bringing all of our clients up to the same level that we have in our digital workplace here. Um, Now, I think the pandemic forced some people to go that way. Um, but now we're all kind of on the same playing field. And I think our clients are becoming more comfortable with the tools that we have. And and they trust us, they put their trust in us to do their tax returns. They provide us basically their open playing field of their financials. They've trusted us that way, so now they're trusting us with their digital information. And so we take a lot of pride in that, and being able to be secure. And our IT consulting group, they do a great job for us. And they're you know they are a great asset, and the reasoning why our clients have trusted us with this adjustment.
It's wonderful. I think it makes sense that the market pushed you and the young people, everything, circumstances pushed. So everyone's on the same page now to move forward together and keep accelerating their digital. Dave, do you
Mm.
have any top tips from your perspective? What would be some benefits for implementing a digital workplace strategy?
Well, I think it's going to be important for like for ourselves with our clients is setting the tone at the top. If you don't practice what you preach, then it's going to be hard. So that being transitioned over to our clients and their businesses with their teams, they need to set the tone at the top. That the CEOs or the COOs, they need to put in place good policy, good governance over data, if they expect their team members to do the same thing. And there's really no getting away from it. We've got to do it because um, uh, not only because the penalties for not doing it, uh, the economic penalties. I mean, if you look at GDPR and the penalties that they throw at you,
Mm-hmm.
those are bad enough. But when you're dealing with data, it can destroy a company. If that information gets to the wrong place, or if it's gone, if it's eliminated because it's been erased from your hard drive or your computer's been ransomed. Safe digital protection policies and governance is really important. And if you don't have, like I said, if you don't have the resources in-house, then you really have to connect with a trusted advisor that's got that experience, that can provide you with those policies and procedures, and put together a governance infrastructure that will really help the flow of that digital information so that it's there when you need it, and so that the people that you're dealing with can be secure that that information is not going or being shared with people or organizations that are not supposed to be privy to it.
Absolutely. The reputational and financial risks and costs are too high to not.
Yep.
Absolutely. Kimberly, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think we touched all bases here.
Okay. Well, thank you both so very much. Thank you, Kimberly and Dave. It's been fun and therapeutic to actually focus on the future for a bit. I think it's super important to highlight this rich information that, frankly, all businesses need to understand. We're talking about very technical concepts, but very real business concerns. And thank you, listeners. These IR Digital podcasts are meant to be educational resources from experienced lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors with extensive knowledge on topics you as professionals need to know. To learn more about IR Digital and its services, please visit irglobal.com. And if you found this episode useful, please consider sharing it on where you like to listen to your podcast and with your friends and colleagues. So if our listeners want to touch base with you or have any questions, Kimberly, first, how would they contact you? What's the best way?
So one of the ways they can go to our website at hbllp.com, or they can email me directly at khatfield, HATFIELD, at hbllp.com.
Great. And what about you, Dave?
Same thing. You can find us on our website, hbllp.com, or my email address is dthompson, THOMPSON, at hbllp.com. And we love it when people reach out to us. We love to share information. We love questions. And so we invite those. If we don't know the answer, we can probably connect you with somebody who does. We've been doing that internationally through IR Global over the last few years, and it's been a great resource for us that we can really help our clients with all the information that we have, the people that we know.
Great. We have inquisitive listeners, so listeners, don't leave them hanging. Ask all your burning questions via email. That's great. Thank you both so much, and good luck in this new year.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.